are still saying, oh, it's not a crash, guys. Everything is fine. Just wait until they start dropping rates. Well, they've been dropping rates for over a year now, and it's not working. Prices have gone down. So when are people going to realize that the stories that they're told by these idiots, when are they going to realize that they don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about, that they're just chasing their tail like a little poodle? The Canadian housing market is absolutely crashing, and when you begin to look into the unbelievable losses that people are taking, the prices that continue to go backwards, all is revealed about what is happening in this imploding bubble, which has been going on for decades. Politicians will lead you to believe it's been on the timelines that make sense for them, but this has been going on since 2004, guys, as we'll get into a little bit later. So Table Salt here puts the bachelor apartments are utterly collapsing in Toronto here. And, you know, this is true because if you look at what he's put here, the listing now is at $299,000, which is still just way too much for this tiny shoebox. But it was sold for $384,000 in the beginning of 2019. So think about that. That is a 23% loss, but you have to acknowledge how much inflation there's been since then. The person who bought that has been utterly destroyed. And time again, people have told you that it's safe to put your money into Canadian real estate. Well, it's not safe, and that's becoming evident, especially when it's in a bubble, as we've been saying on this channel for years and years and years. And then Shazzy puts offer night crash. This one slipped under my door after sitting on the market for months. Realtors dropped the price on a Mississauga home by more than $400,000 and held an offer night. They got 6 offers. None were suitable for the sellers, so they are holding offers in 2 days again. Why not just sell at the market value? Why all these games? And again, the real estate associations, the realtors themselves, they're all playing these games to make the figures look better than they actually are, to try and convince people that the housing market is better than it actually is. But when you really look into what's going on, it's just that most of these sellers are actually in denial right now. And as soon as that in denial vanishes and turns into fear, it will turn into capitulation in the housing market. And we're already seeing that somewhat, because now the prices have dropped to a new low here. So prices now at $689,000 as of April 2025. And you have to go all the way back here to May 2021 in order to find a price that was lower than the price right now. And guys, you have to acknowledge that even CPI inflation since May of 2021 is a heck of a lot. You're nearly at 30% when you compound all the inflation that's been happening since then over the past 4 years. So you just have to think how people have been utterly destroyed. And some markets are making these figures actually look a lot better than they really are. So, you know, if you take out those markets like Calgary and Edmonton and Montreal, it looks even worse because those markets make the national numbers look a little bit better. So it's kind of crazy what is going on. And then you've got more and more assignments. Again, these were all the rage during the mania and the bubble when it was just insanely frothy back in 2021. And now people are just bleeding these assignments, and nobody wants to touch them with a 10-foot pole. So here you have another assignment sale loss of $500,000. So it's now going for $1.6 million, down from $2.1 million. So people are just losing insane amounts of money here. And then you've got a $700,000 Oakville assignment sale. So again, just huge losses. Originally purchased for $2.6 million, and now it's going for $1.89 million. So they've just been absolutely creamed by this housing market crash, which some mortgage brokers and realtors are still saying, oh, it's not a crash, guys. Everything is fine. Just wait until they start dropping rates. Well, they've been dropping rates for over a year now, and it's not working. Prices have gone down. So when are people going to realize that the stories that they're told by these idiots with these massive bias that they have to sell you mortgages and to sell you homes, when are they going to realize that they don't have a clue what they're talking about, that they're just chasing their tail like a little poodle. And then you've got, even in Caledon now, you've got losses that are mounting up. So power of sale and $263,000 loss in the middle of nowhere in Ontario. And as Shazzy puts here, and he's so right, in 2020 to 2022, so many buyers were priced out of the GTA and forced to go north. And this was kind of mixed in to become the perfect cocktail with low interest rates as well. The fact people were able to defer their mortgage and save a little bit of money, because that's really what happened. People put their expenses on hold and they were able to save the money. It wasn't because of any increase in income, and that's how all the pandemic figures just look really skewed when it comes to incomes, when incomes, they didn't actually grow by that much. So they paid $850,000 for a small detached halfway between the GTA and Owen Sound, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. The lender just sold the home from under them for $263,000 under what they bought it for. There are dozens of tiny developments all over rural Ontario that are bleeding residents as everybody is forced back into the office. And the thing is, that's if they can get a job, right? Because you think about what's happening with the job market in Toronto, especially, it's a complete shit show. So, you know, yeah, if they can get back into the office, but maybe worse, if they're laid off, how are they even going to find a job? I mean, they need to sell their house, they need to move back, and they need to find a job. Is that realistic to happen? But people were just living in a total fantasy land back in 2021. And I was saying that. That's the reason I started this channel, was just because it was so frustrating to me how it seemed like everyone was brain dead, and we grew this community out of nowhere where people were actually thinking the same thing. And yeah, there was a lot of like-minded people, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And then economic woes put on X. I showed you this the other week, but again, this just really shows you what's going on. It doesn't show up when you go and look at these stats, because again, you've got those markets that are actually propping up the data. But if you look at the loss from the peak here, you've got places like Milton that are down 25%. Those are places that people were rushing out to. You've got Georgina down 33%. You've got King, which is down a whopping 55.43%. Markham is down 22%. All these places are down, down, down. Orangeville, I mean, that's a nice town, down 36%. It's just absolutely crazy. You've got Bradford that is down 35%. You've just got to think about all these developments that came up. They sold the homes to these people, and guess what? They can't complete on the homes. They can't get mortgages on the homes. And in most cases, they can't even sell the homes, the developers, because they're trying to sell them for like 20% above what the used market is selling houses for. So they're just like, who's going to do that? Nobody, even in the housing market, is that brain dead to go and buy new. Well, actually, there is some to go and buy new construction, but it just goes to show what's really happening. It's all a facade. Like, people have just been lied to and lied to and lied to about the housing market and how bad it is. And people in those places where housing prices are still inflated, like Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, those are the ones that should be absolutely themselves right now about what's going to happen in the future, because I don't think I need to tell anybody what's going to happen in the future here. I think it's pretty obvious when you have a melt up in prices which part of the cycle you're in. And there's always these little stories that people like to tell each other, especially realtors like to tell their clients, but they're just as stupid as they sound, quite frankly, and they're just based on totally nothing, and it's just designed to manipulate your emotions. And even the people telling these stories, they don't even realize that most of the time either. And then John Flynn also put this, and he's totally correct, is if you look, April 2021, 692,000 the average price was for a home in Canada, and now April 2025, 679,000, so it's under that. So you've had 4 years, like I said, of inflation since then. You've had so much purchasing power that has been destroyed. If you put your money into a house hoping for a safe haven, then you have been dealt the worst hand possible, because the reality is the housing market is fractured. It's a bubble that's imploding. The government thinks they have control over it, but they don't. And then somebody sent me this, Ruben, thank you for sending this to me, but you've got EI claims times, they're not being updated. You know, since the election happened here, you can see that the data isn't even being updated. It hasn't been updated since March 30th. So we don't even know how many EI claimants there are. And think about what's happened to unemployment since then. And this just goes to show again, the figures are so broken. They are so stupid now in Canada. You can just use things like the CPI for a trend so you know where things are going. But other than that, it's completely useless. Anybody who comes on the mainstream media and takes a CPI of 1.7% and says this is accurate, this is what the average people are experiencing, is a clown. They really are, because it's not the reality at all, and practically everybody knows that. And all of these bars that you see on this chart right now are purchasing power above and beyond what people have already lost if prices are below 2021 levels. So the reality is, if you put money in the housing market hoping for a safe haven, it was a disaster. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. And if you're looking for a VPN to protect your privacy, we all need a VPN. I use one. I'm using one right now. Support the channel at the same time. Go to ExpressVPN, link in the description, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.